People don't know how to eat anymore. They just go anywhere, grab anything, and as a result of this, we become sicker, fatter, lazier, less intelligent, and overall just less effective people. The solution is diet, developing strict parameters of what you can and cannot eat. Well, a lot of people looking to improve their health listen to mainstream media, dietary guidelines. A lot of other people follow fad diets. What if I told you fad diets weren't actually fads, but rather a rediscovery, a way to find the proper human diet? A proper human diet is just what a human's physiology and biology would prefer them to eat, what we are meant to eat, and what we have eaten most of our existence before the invention of processed foods and before the agricultural revolution. On to the paleo diet, where you are excluding grains, dairy, and legumes, which can actually work really well because grains are mostly just glutinous carbohydrate bombs. Even if it's whole grain, not a lot of nutrition, still gonna spike your blood sugar a lot. With legumes, might not spike your blood sugar as much, but it's just a very poor protein source compared to meat, which you're eating a lot of meat on this diet, which is a very good thing. With dairy, dairy is an extremely nutrient dense food, however, because it has lactose and casein and a lot of other things, these just tend to irritate a lot of different people. Obviously, raw milk is trending right now, and yes, before the 1800s, humans would have drinking raw milk. However, nowadays raw milk is so hard to find and you don't really need it. If you can get some, that's great, but it's just not really necessary. It might even, be a hindrance due to all the sugar. But if you can get like butter, cheese, something lower in lactose, might be a really great option. But luckily, all those great nutrients from animal foods you're getting from meat and eggs anyway, so you don't ever really need to consume dairy. I mean, there's this calcium argument and milk alternatives. But y'all gotta understand, like, RDAs and nutritional science isn't correct. Calcium from meat is far more bioavailable and absorbable than from any plant or even milk. This diet also includes fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, and even honey sometimes. Obviously, in terms of improving your health, getting good nutrition, lowering energy balance, this is a great overall diet. There are a lot of cons to it, but it's still better than any Mediterranean diet or low-fat diet that you could be eating. Now, because this diet is supposed to mimic the way our ancestors ate, it's obviously not a fat diet. Now, did our ancestors eat that exact diet? Probably not. Fruit was not seasonal year-round, so fruit's not really in the cards, Honey, very rare. Another issue with this diet is it's not taking into account that plants are more genetically modified anyway to have more sugar and less fiber and less nutrients. So, in terms of fruits, having a lot of fruit on this diet doesn't really look like a good argument. Now, I know paleo is super dead, and obviously animal-based is a big thing right now, Tons of fruit, honey, raw milk. With milk, as nutrient dense as it is, it's not, appropriate to drink the milk of another mammal. So no, milk would not be in the proper human diet unless it is of your mother. All right, the next diet we're going to talk about is keto, which is a lot more popular than paleo, but they seem to be really similar. The main difference, though, is the carbohydrate content as well as dairy. Dairy from cheese and butter is allowed on this diet. With carbohydrates, they must be under 50 grams to keep you in ketosis, so you can eat low-carb berries, nuts and seeds, and vegetables as well. So no potatoes, sweet potatoes, or tubers or stuff like that. And so yeah, most of the diet is meat and eggs, you know. Wonder what the proper human diet is. Ketosis sounds nice because you're burning fat instead of glucose, which sounds like you would get more weight loss. Is that actually true? So, tons of other scientists argue that ketosis is catabolic, or, you're just going to raise your cortisol and just break and destroy yourself over time. And it seems like that's not really true unless you're not eating enough. You still should produce mild insulin to hold on to electrolytes and sort. So electrolytes can be a big problem on this sort of diet. Now, what were our ancestors doing? Were they eating carbs? Were they eating keto? Our ancestors were apex predators, hunter-gatherers. They probably hunted, fasted all day, ate like maybe one large meal a day with meat, maybe some plants. So is that keto? Yes, that's keto. Fasted state mimics keto. And even if you're on a lower carbohydrate diet of 50 to 100 grams, you can still enter ketosis later in the day after your body processes some of the carbs. So that could be considered like carb fasting or carb cycling or keto fasting. But yes, our ancestors would have been in ketosis all day. And it just so happens that every herbivore is in ketosis because their guts actually turn fiber into short chain fatty acids and amino acids. So they're munching on leaves and stems all day, and they're turning all that shit into protein and fat. And then we got crazy liberals thinking that they're also vegan, even though we don't have a appendix that functions the same as a gorilla. You believe in evolution, which, I don't because it's kind of silly, but apes are relative to humans. The difference between a human and an ape is that we can actually eat meat. That's what would have gotten our brains bigger to become humans, supposedly, theoretically. And we lost our ability to break down fiber. I mean, yeah, there you go. That's literally the difference. Keto foods are also very satiating, which, although it might not be necessary, it definitely helps with obesity. And you definitely cannot overeat on this type of diet. All right, well, it seems like that's how humans are supposed to eat, a lot of meat and eggs, some high fiber plant foods possibly, and that's it. That's where the line is drawn. Anything past that, that is not a proper human diet. But if you want to actually heal yourself, you can't just be spiking your blood sugar all the time. I know it's this big saying that carbs don't make you fat, but the more carbs we've eaten, the fatter we've gotten, the sicker we've gotten. We first introduced carbs after the agricultural revolution. Our teeth started immediately rotting and we started growing shorter. Our brains got a little bit smaller. But in the 1900s, the US government created the food pyramid, telling us that 60 to 70% of our diet should be whole grains. That is dangerous. And so ever since then, heart disease has gone up, diabetes has gone up, stroke's gone up, every autoimmune disease has gone up. And somehow meat and fat is always blamed. There was a physiologist in the 1950s, I believe, named Ancel Keys. And he had this hypothesis that cholesterol and saturated fat caused heart disease because of increased LDL. Well, anyone with common sense knows that's an absolute lie, If you haven't looked into it, then you just haven't deciphered the information for yourself. But this man created his own fad diet called the Mediterranean diet. However, this diet is now used as an American staple to try to get people healthier. They say, oh, don't do keto, don't do paleo, don't do carnivore, don't do animal-based. Those are just fad diets. Do the Mediterranean diet. Because, we see these people in Italy or we see these people in the blue zones and they're so healthy. The US poster child diet, almost became plant-based with lean chicken breast and low-fat dairy, which low-fat dairy is higher in sugar. It's higher in lactose. Lactose is the part of dairy that's giving everyone a hard time. And so say what you want, but obviously that hasn't worked. And that's not what they eat in Italy. The real Mediterranean diet, yes, it contains a lot of carbs, but there's a lot more whole foods, legumes, meats, cheeses, vegetables, fruits. So what they're telling us they eat in the Mediterranean isn't even actually what they eat. Because they eat a lot of plants, but they're certainly not plant-based. They're certainly not cutting meat out of their diet. Alright, so if you like this video, please click the link in the description. Unless you are poor and don't know how to trade time for money. But if you have a lot of free time, subscribe and watch more videos.